When a reporter asked President Trump yesterday if he would attack North Korea, the president said, "We'll see." Mr. Trump tweeted yesterday that North Korea's words and actions continue to be very hostile and dangerous to the United States. Defense Secretary James Mattis sent his own message after a national security meeting at the White House.
We are not looking to the total annihilation of a country, namely North Korea. But as I said, we have many options to do so.
USA Today Washington Bureau Chief Susan Page is with us from Washington. Susan, good morning.
Good morning, Vlad.
So Defense Secretary Mattis talked about multiple military options. The president tweeted about economic consequences. What do you make of that talk?
Well, I think it was interesting that the comment in front of the White House, as you just saw, was from the Defense Secretary, from the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, talking about a military response that didn't come from the Secretary of State. And you do have the sense that while what the administration is saying on military options is the same as what previous administrations have said, which is all options are on the table, you do have the sense that military options are more a higher prospect now than we've ever seen.
Susan, Congress is returning this week with a lot to try to work around here. Debt ceiling, tax reform policy, potentially North Korea. There's also this news now that President Trump is looking to potentially end the DACA program for undocumented the immigrants, the children. What happens with DACA now? Is the president putting the ball in Congress's court?
Well, that's what we understand he's going to do. He's going to rescind DACA. Those are the reports out of the White House on some sort of timetable. And that is going to create a real political firestorm, because we know that while the president's base supports the idea of ending this program, and it's something he promised to do over and over again during the campaign, that Americans, 2/3, in some polls 3/4 of Americans support the program, do not want these young people at the risk of deportation. So this is going to create some big challenges for the Congress on whether they can act. They've debated this before and been unable to act. And also what it's going to mean for Republicans in next year's midterm elections. We've got the example of California. Pete Wilson in the 1990s took action seen as very deleterious to illegal immigrants, and the Republican Party in California has been paying that price ever since.
Susan, Jeff mentioned that we obviously have Congress back in session next week, and this idea of the debt ceiling being tied to Harvey, we know that they've got to get to that Harvey relief right away. What do you make of this?
You know, I think in this way, this terrible tragedy of Hurricane Harvey gives Congress kind of a way to get a debt ceiling lifted that's helpful to them. You know, that's usually the subject of a lot of a political debate. Republicans often reluctant to raise the debt ceiling, but everybody is in favor of providing some relief to these hurricane victims. And so in a way, this might be a little helpful legislatively to get that done. Also need to get funding the government done. There are a couple of things that Congress must do in the month of September.
Could it also be helpful that we finally see some bipartisan work there in Congress?
You know, I think that's possible, and I think that would be something, a big relief to Americans. I think a lot of us watched these scenes out of Houston were really, they were heart-wrenching because of the devastation, but kind of heartwarming because you saw people working together, and you saw the government, the local government, seeming to do a pretty good job in getting things under control there.
Susan, do you have any sense that tax reform goes anywhere this fall?
You know, I think tax reform is one of those high priorities that keeps getting lower on the list. Now it's below North Korea, it's below hurricane relief, below raising the debt ceiling. If DACA is rescinded, it's going to be below trying to do something about these young people who came here illegally, brought here illegally as children. I think tax reform was always going to be a big lift. I think it just gets harder and harder to see how that gets done.
Does the president still believe that Mexico is going to pay for that wall, Susan? Because that's going to be a discussion that Congress is going to take on.
You know, the president continues to say that, but from his conversation that we heard about that recording, that transcript that was released of his conversation with the Mexican president, it didn't sound like even the president thinks that's really a realistic possibility.
All right.
Susan Page, as always, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you.